This week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast is sponsored by Pure Creative Apparel. From logo design to specialty clothing to branded merchandise, the team at Pure Creative Apparel can take your ideas and bring them to life. You can find out more at purecreativeapparel.com, and we thank Pure Creative Apparel for sponsoring this week's show. Welcome to the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We feature destination races from across the country, and after the race, we take you on a tour of the best local food and beverage to celebrate. So whether you are an elite runner or a back-of-the-packer like us, you'll know the best places to accomplish, explore, and indulge on your next runcation. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 77.
I got you laughing, ha.
The Run, Eat, Drink podcast. Yes, this is episode 77. This is part 2 of our recap of our weekend in Anchorage, Alaska. And of course, I'm your host, Amy, who is still recovering from the jet lag that was 14 hours in a plane.
And I'm the class clown, Dana, who had the host laughing before the intro music stopped. So sorry about that.
Have you recovered from the plane flight?
I haven't known what time it is all week long.
I'm telling you, wow, that was an amazing trip. But I feel like when we make the plans for somewhere like Alaska or Hawaii or California or anywhere where we're going to have
3 or more time zone changes.
Where we're going to have a massive difference in time and several connected flights or one big long one, we really need to look at building in time after the race to enjoy and then time at home to recover from the travel.
You're not wrong, but really what got us on this trip is that it was 14 hours up and about 12 hours back.
It felt longer on the way back.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. But just keep in mind when you get to California, you're only halfway to Alaska at that point.
I love how you're so fond of telling me that we were closer to Russia when we were in Alaska.
Well, from what I remember from a famous politician who hailed from Alaska, they could see Russia from their backyard or something like that.
I don't know who you're talking about. But
so, yeah, anyway.
Whatever.
We don't get political here.
No, we're anti the political discussion. No. We just want to bring everybody together on the running, the eating, and the drinking.
Things that can really unite and not divide people.
Right.
Although there might be some division as to what the perfect race length is.
True enough, because in the Anchorage RunFest, last week we recapped the 1 miler, and that could be the perfect distance for people.
It was pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie.
Man,
it was a great run.
Before you turn around, it's over, and you're celebrating. Or on Sunday, you had a variety of distances to choose from at the Anchorage RunFest. For example, you had the 5K. That was the shortest distance on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You had the half marathon.
No 10K.
No 10K.
Okay.
Which I think you've talked about as the perfect distance.
That's my perfect distance.
Yeah. But anyway, I digress. It was not there at the Anchorage RunFest. The half marathon.
Which is what we ran and what we're talking about today.
13.1 miles, just FYI. Or the marathon. Or the 49K. And I also believe that the marathon had a relay option because I saw a relay exchange on our course.
Okay.
Because we shared the course with the 49K, the half, and the full, all shared the same course, and the 5K, but we didn't really come across any 5K runners because they started much later than we did.
Yeah, it was interesting. On that race course, we were actually, there's a out and back, and we were seeing some of the same people a couple of times, and I'm like, wow, we're either really slow or they're really fast or both. And
They had more distance to cover.
But they had far more distance to cover. So
Yeah.
they were doing the out and backs, and we were seeing them on the way out with us and then catching them again, meeting them on the course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including some of our favorite people.
And we did happen to run into America's coach on the course.
And his wife.
And
they
his
were
wife.
together. You know what?
Jeff Galloway.
I love that they run
Bart
together.
Galloway.
I love they run together.
I love that they run together, and I love that they use the cutting-edge sports nutrition that is a bottle of Coca-Cola
And
or
she uses Sprite
as their sports nutrition drink of choice on the race course. I think that's awesome.
And do you know that we've talked about how we've been running for 10 years? Well,
Amateurs by comparison.
yeah, we're amateurs because he's like, I've been running for over almost 60 years. But he's on that race course with his flat Coke, and she's there with her flat Sprite because she doesn't want the caffeine.
Right.
Because different things will do different things to your intestinal distress.
He talks about that a lot in
don't
his
want.
talks.
Yeah.
He'll tell you, if you haven't used supplements that have caffeine, the worst time to experiment is race day.
Like blocks or beans or gels.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back when he came up in running at the beginning, they didn't have, heck, I don't even think they had Gatorade at that time.
I don't even know what they had, but they surely didn't have the variety of gels, sports beans, blocks, all of those bars, those kinds of things. So, and I'll tell you, during the first part of our running career, I did use flat Coke.
You still have some days where I think you default back to that.
And I do. Yeah. It just depends on the distance and the training or in the race. If I think maybe it's hot and I might need some of that sugar, or do I trust the sport beans or the gels that they might have on the course and that kind of thing?
I think that'll depends on how your stomach's feeling that day you go out to run.
Yeah.
For me, it's temperature. If it's super hot outside, I don't want to eat anything. I don't wake up hungry in the summertime normally. I'm good to go till almost noon or afternoon for my first meal. And that goes for days where I have a run planned, and I'll make myself not eat.
It just depends on you. Everybody's individual.
Or I'll make myself
and
eat.
how your gut processes the stress of running.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it's
There
adorable
you
to
go.
see them using some old
It's
school
adorable.
methods.
You said
and
adorable.
It is, and I say that, but they're like so much faster than us. And,
Oh my God.
And it's so funny because they're using like a 15-second walk, 15-second run interval, and
Oh my
they're
goodness.
just cooking on the course.
I think
And-
that it took them like 5 hours and change to do that marathon.
And there were just tons of people out there doing, a variety of strategies to handle the course. Some walking, some running, some combination of the
Like us.
two, like us.
Yeah.
And it was just great. Everybody was super cool, regardless of which run they were running.
They were so friendly.
Everybody
I mean,
was.
You know what I enjoyed about this, and we haven't even broken down like the actual terrain and
No, we're getting to that.
I know we're getting to that, but what I really liked is everybody there, from the volunteers to the police at the very start of the course that were helping navigate traffic on the roads for the very short period of time we were on roads, the volunteers at the water stops, the people who were a part of the Anchorage Running Club, just cheering people on. And the runners at all distances were so friendly and so encouraging.
They really were.
Yeah.
Right down to the high schoolers that were out there helping.
Yeah.
Whether their parents dragged them along or their school club was volunteering, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And it wasn't the type of race where you had a whole lot of on-course audiences, I would say, for lack of a better term, like cheering sections, signs and things like that, the way that you would have, say, at a Donna course.
No, it was not as crowded along the course with cheer sections,
Participants
as
that
Donna
had family
or
cheering them
Disney.
on. Yeah.
But you had something at least every couple of miles.
Yeah.
So you really didn't have a lack of people cheering you on. I mean, the people at the water
you mean
stops.
like people at the water stops and
Yeah.
at the aid stations?
At the aid stations and the water stops, you actually had a crowd there going clapping. And,
or the on-course entertainment.
And we had several bits of that.
Yeah. So,
whether it was native drummers, whether it was
bagpipes.
There was a guy playing I believe he's playing a guitar.
Well, we had a drummer on the way out, and then we had a guitar at one point on the way back in. And we had a singing group as well by the water.
Yes.
So there was a variety, and it was a different kind of on-course support in terms of cheering you on. But it was still great.
So let's break down the course for everybody.
Yeah. So there were different start times for the 49K, for the marathon, for the half marathon. The 5K started the latest. And we started in the half marathon distance at 8:45.
Which was super late.
Yeah, because
for what we're accustomed to anyway.
Like normally, even at Donna, we're starting earlier than that.
Yeah, I think
and at Disney,
7:30.
We're up at the crack of dawn, 3 a.m. to get in the corrals and then start usually around 5:30. So it was, for a morning race start, it was really later.
Yeah, it was one of the latest morning starts that we've ever had.
Mm-hmm. The course started out on the roads of downtown Anchorage. And that's where our police support came in to keep us safe and navigate the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went into the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail,
which is less than a mile.
Mm-hmm.
You're not on the surface streets of downtown very long at all.
Not even a mile, because the first mile marker was on the trail.
And it is flat and then downhill heading into the trail.
Mm-hmm.
The drawback to that, and we'll get to it towards the end, is that this is an out and back course, so you know what that means.
Yeah. I mean, you can infer. But so we had the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail, and it was just beautiful water and paved trail with amazing and huge trees.
Yeah.
And like rivers of water periodically.
Yeah, you had little creeks. You had the
Westchester
bay
Lagoon
off to our right forever.
Yeah. So
at one point we had the Alaska Railway.
Yeah, we had a
the
train.
The choo-choo came by.
And I think that's a first for us, is it not?
I believe it is.
Yeah, to have a train pass us or like go along with us on the course very briefly before he passed us. Yeah. And bagpipes right at the same time. But
that was pretty cool.
And the first mile, 2 miles before you get into the really large trees and lots of shaded area.
That was the best.
Yeah.
So that's what it's like to run in shade. It was glorious.
Yeah. Before that, it was the beautiful water, and you could see, I don't know, was it whales?
There were...
I don't know, because I couldn't tell, because I can't see out that far. You know me.
There were porpoises, Arctic porpoises. I forget what they're called up there. But,
whales? Are they whales? Or?
Yeah, they're
I don't know.
They're a type of whale out in the water. This bay has these big mud flats that go out for about 300 yards.
Yeah,
and when the tide goes out, you look at that, and I from what we were being told on the race course, a lot of people get really jammed up going out there. They get stuck. They have to get rescued. Some people don't make it.
So the answer is
there's signage that says "Do not go out here."
And from the trail, you have a beautiful vista.
It's better seen.
Just enjoy it from the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail. Yeah,
that's the safest way.
Yeah. So that there were plenty of water stops and port-a-potties.
Oh, hold on. This gets us to our discussion.
Yeah.
You said there are plenty of water stops.
Yes.
We brought it up last week.
Mm-hmm.
We asked you guys what is your feeling? Should you bring your own hydration pack or should you trust the on-course support? And again, I put it out on social media. You guys answered us. 50-50 split.
Yeah.
50-50 split. Everybody's, kind of either in the trust no one camp or in the I will bring my own or I'll just go with whatever they have. Well, we said we'd tell you what we did. So we split the difference. We packed our hydration packs, and then based on whatever we saw during the 1 miler with how well it was organized and the expo, we tossed a coin, we threw caution to the wind, and on race day for this day, we left our hydration packs empty back in the hotel room. So we packed them.
We shouldn't even have packed them.
We shouldn't have even packed them. We went through all the consternation of trying to find room in our luggage and leaving stuff at home and all that, only to bring them and not use them.
Yeah, we did. Well, I talked to Barb at the expo, and she said, they put water stops where they can along the trail, wherever they can set up tables and the coolers and where they're able to do it. And it's pretty plentiful. So she said, if you think you might need it more than every 3 miles, then bring it. And I felt like, no. I feel like that's going to be a nice interval for the water, the Gatorade.
2 to 3 miles, I think, especially if it's not super hot out, is perfect.
So I felt comfortable not bringing, and they delivered. They had it out there.
They really did. This was, I think, one of the best prepared race courses that we've done that's not a Disney race.
Yeah, they were ready. It was awesome. So I am so glad that I didn't have the extra weight of the backpack because that can slow you down.
It does. I mean, you're fully loaded. Like I have a Camelback Lobo, which is their low profile one, usually for cyclists, but also for running. Yeah. Even fully loaded, it's 100 ounces of water. So that's 28 ounces under a gallon. So that's about 7 pounds, 6 pounds. Then when you throw in your goos and any other junk you're going to carry with you on your race,
like a poncho,
you're looking at about 8 pounds on your back, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not for a mile.
Right.
But when you get into mile 9, mile 10, mile 11, it starts to get heavy.
Right. So I think it was smart to leave it behind based on the feedback that we got when we were there and what we saw of the initial race, the 1 miler that we had and that we did.
So yeah, paved course that goes from out on the water into over these creeks and through this beautiful forest.
Oh, and there were tunnels.
Tunnels.
There were some tunnels, connecting the different parts of the trail. And so, I took off my sunglasses at those points in time, and those were opportune times where if something was tight, I could stop, and I actually had some railing to stretch anything out.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
This is basically a linear park that goes for over 6 miles.
And then there was a turnaround.
And it's so well equipped. I mean, the footbridges that go over the water are in great shape. They have trash cans. At the water stations, they had port-a-potties at each water station. So you never really went without. Every 2 to 3 miles, you had relief.
Yeah. So it was well done. I think the challenge in this race was not the temperature for us because we have trained in humidity and heat. I think the challenge was the wind.
Well, okay. Let's talk about the temperature for a second, though.
Yeah.
We're talking high of like 72
yes.
by noon.
Yes.
So that meant that the temperatures were in the 50s and 60s most of the race course.
Yeah. And like Jeff says, and like he talked about in the pasta feed where they had the guest speakers, Bart Yasso and Jeff and Marco Cicchetto, he used his time to impart wisdom about anything over 55 degrees is going to slow you down to a certain degree, and it's important to hydrate, even though you might feel like the weather is beautiful and you don't need it as much, you're not thinking of it as much. That is the challenge.
I've made that mistake and actually went to Jeff with that and said, hey, I went out, I did a training run here one evening, did 13 miles, and I felt great for the first 9. I mean, it was dry, it was cool, it was fantastic. I mean, I was running way more than I normally did.
Ooh.
And I didn't feel it until about mile 10, 11.
I remember the texts from you?
Oh, it was rough. I
Yeah.
mean, I was smoked by the end of that one. So he's not wrong about all of that.
No.
But I will say this. If you are a hot weather state denizen, if you come from a state that doesn't normally get this kind of weather in this time of year,
Yeah.
and you're looking for a marathon, a half marathon, or a marathon course where you are looking for a mostly flat course where you could maybe PR, this might be a good one for you because the temperatures, even though they were under heat advisory with temperatures between 50 in the 50s to 70s, let's just say they have their normal temperatures there from the 30s to the 50s.
Right.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
And it was still perfect for us.
Yes. Yes. Now, so the wind at times, it was a tailwind or a headwind.
Yeah, that wind was no joke. No,
and a sand and whatever is in your hair coming from the trees.
Well, the wind started picking up at what, mile 4?
I think so.
About mile 4. And once it started, it really didn't stop.
No.
It started picking up, and it was breezy at first, but then it got just flat out windy to the point where we had sustained winds for at times of 14, 15 miles an hour.
And they said that there were people out on the course when there was a sandstorm.
Well,
in one of their recaps, and there we had a little
dust devil kind of that we were running in at one point.
A little wind tornado.
Yeah,
that we passed through.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't that bad.
But while we were running through the forest, we could hear trees cracking, limbs cracking.
And you know what was great? Before we got to the turnaround, I think you have footage of what happened to me.
I do. We should put that on social media.
We should. Well, it's going to look terrible for me from behind, but what we came, it's the first ever instance of us running a race where a tree had fallen and blocked the course and we had to climb over it.
Yeah. And what was great was as you're running, the runners coming are like, hey, tree fell down about 100 yards back that way.
Yeah, the ones that are coming back.
They're warning all the runners heading towards it.
Yeah. So that was so hysterical. I mean, I was like, I'm climbing over this.
But again, kudos to the race support. We get to the turnaround, we come back, we're heading back there, we get to that spot. By the time we'd gotten back there, they had already gotten somebody with a chainsaw and chainsawed it and got it out of the way.
Yeah. So if you were a slower runner like us, by the time you got back to that same point on the turnaround part of the course, then you were good to go.
But I will tell you this, the wind is not something we normally get here.
No, it presented its own unique challenge, and I think I had so much like sand and like debris in my hair when we were done.
Well, that's a challenge for you with contact lenses.
Well, that's true. I couldn't see.
And also, if you things to think about, I'm in Alaska, the weather's going to be cool. I don't need to put on sunscreen. Yeah, you probably do because you should put a little sunscreen on. Between the sun and the wind, easy to get chapped skin. Mm-hmm. Very easy.
Yeah. I would say I liked this course and it was mainly flat.
Had a few small hills.
Some, but there was nothing near when you think of, say,
San Francisco.
The Run the Bluegrass. Yeah, that we've talked about on the podcast before. It is nothing like that. It
predominantly
is
flat.
It's like an overpass.
Exactly.
That you would see. Tiny overpass.
Hills that are no larger than an overpass. So if you're thinking about race courses to do and you're like, oh, I don't really want to do something super hilly.
Yeah.
Could you do a couple of overpasses in your 13 miles? You probably could.
And it would be fine.
Although I will say that last hill heading into coming out off the trail and back into downtown, it just happens to be at mile 12.
Yeah, because you have to the descent you had on the initial mile,
you're running.
You have to ascend to get back to the finish. So it's something to think about at the end, but it really wasn't as steep as we've seen in the past.
Oh no, the old course at Donna was much worse as far as having
that whole
an entire bridge to run.
Super steep.
Again, I would say if you're considering doing this race or you're looking for a race to go to, that's cooler temperatures,
Beautiful.
looking for the scenery. This one delivers.
Yeah. And it's different from, say, what you get in the desert Southwest or in Florida or New York.
Very unique.
So, yeah, I loved it. I would do it again. And in terms of the whole experience for me, I was so proud of you.
Why?
Because getting out there after having surgery and rehabbing and, doing short distances, though, that's cool.
I didn't do any running.
But you walked that whole thing, which I know was probably a little bit frustrating because you're thinking you want to run.
It was a lot frustrating. I'm not going to lie.
But at the same time, doing that distance, I know I would be, and I was, when I first came back from surgery, so worried and stressed, and you just handled it like a pro.
Well, thank you.
Like a pro. I don't know what happened to me.
Well, I think jet lag and probably just not. Yeah, one thing I would say is if you are going to travel to this race, travel up a day in advance.
Yeah, give yourself a couple of days.
Or day or two.
A couple of days.
And I only say that because if you're not coming from, say, the Pacific Standard Time zone, it's a bit of an adjustment. And even if you are coming from, say, California or Washington, you're still at the mercy of the way the sunlight behaves up there.
True.
I mean, you're talking, what was it, 19 hours, 18 hours of sunlight there. Yeah. So we were, 10 o'clock at night with daylight. So it's very different. Yeah. And I think that was impacting you some, but
I think it did. Yeah.
This being my first big run after surgery, I strapped on my knee brace and I said, I'm just going to walk it.
Yep.
There were times where I was trying to walk fast, and I may have gotten into a bit of a trot to get ahead of you to take some photos, but I did exactly what my therapist told me to do, which
Physical
was walk
therapists,
it.
Doctors, yeah.
And I mean, it was certainly not my fastest time. It was frustrating because I actually am feeling really good. My update for everybody is that rehab is going very well. In fact, as of the day we're recording, I had my most recent therapy session this morning. Everything's going very well. They're very pleased with progress there. So
yay.
I felt great during that. The only problem that I had with that was the darn leg brace itself. The knee brace was actually rubbing me raw in spots. I was about ready to throw that thing into the Anchorage Bay because it was just driving me nuts. Other than that, I felt really good.
That's why I wear capri leggings when
I can't rock that, so
I know
that's not going to happen.
I know, but like if you ever are in a really cold race, and I've seen you layer like shorts and then those.
Maybe for Jeff's race, because Jeff's race, if you're looking by comparison, Jeff's race is hillier.
I think
in Atlanta than this one is,
and he says as much.
But the hills are about the same size.
Yes.
So there are more hills in Atlanta, but you're not going to get anything worse than running in Atlanta.
Right.
Would that be a fair?
I would think that's
fair assessment.
That's a fair assessment. And running in Atlanta, there's nothing bad about it. It's just a little bit more of an ascent on the hills.
And it was colder.
And a little bit colder.
And a lot rainier.
Yes. This year.
So talk about the bling.
Well, I'll say this. Earning the bling for me, I decided against the PR. I decided against the PR.
She's being kind. She decided to stay with her gimpy husband is what it was. She didn't want to leave me. I kept trying to tell her to go, and she wouldn't.
I was very torn. And I know that I talked on previous episodes about wanting to go for a PR at this race, but I felt like it was more important to me mentally to stay with you. And I even tried to get ahead of you a little bit on part of the course, but then I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing?
You're just leaving your crippled husband behind.
Exactly.
That's all.
Right?
So no big deal.
I know you're being sarcastic. I know that's sarcasm from you, but seriously, I was very torn in my mind, and really what that meant was I should stay with you and see it through, because there are going to be other races that have flat course opportunities for PR when you are fully healed, and I'm not worried.
And I think that'll be our next race. I think our next big race is the Wine and Dine.
Well, yeah, but
half marathon at
Jeff
Disney.
says that's congested in so many places that it's not always opportune to PR there.
True, that's also true.
So,
but I mean, that's our next big race.
Yeah.
The rest of it's going to be training weeks leading up to that,
Unless we
and
throw
then
something in
following that race, we have Jeff's race scheduled back in Atlanta.
Yay!
So, again, the bling. Talk about the bling.
Yes, I'm sorry. The bling. We talked about the 1 miler medal and how it was a blue ribbon and it was like a metallic kind of
iridescent,
reflective purple and gold.
Mm-hmm.
And this, it said half marathon, 13.1, Anchorage RunFest on it, and it was just bigger than the 1 miler, but it had the same color tones.
I love the bling.
It was
at
great.
Both of these races. Number one, I never suspected I was going to even get a finisher's medal at the 1 miler.
Right.
So kudos to the folks at the Anchorage RunFest for even thinking to do that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then this one, same theme, but larger.
Yeah, but larger. It was really beautiful, and I liked their theme and how they carried it through for all of their medals for all the different races. I liked it.
I did too.
Yeah.
So
I'd do it again.
overall, okay, so I was going to ask you, would you recommend this race to people?
Yes, absolutely. And our girl dog back here is recommending the race
Apparently
too.
she is.
If you
That's
hear her, if you hear some barking.
She's giving it her seal of approval.
It's National Dog Day, so happy National Dog Day out there. Anybody, everybody. And she's giving her stamp of approval too. So
yeah, I would agree. I would recommend this. I think that the natural beauty you've got to look at, the course is paved, flat, very little on surface streets to worry about traffic, and the parts that you have are so well managed. Anchorage PD not only was out on the course in force, those guys and ladies had a recruiting booth set up at the expo. So they were supporting the expo. They were supporting the race with detail officers. Just fantastic. So
great.
I never felt unsafe. And here's something to remember. Along the race course, there was the potential to encounter wildlife. And they talked about that a lot. There are actually moose that sometimes show up. I guess there's the potential for bears. But
we didn't.
Aside from squirrels and some really unique local fowl, birds, we didn't really see anything that was dangerous, so I never felt unsafe.
Right.
And then the PD handling traffic was perfect.
Yeah.
So absolutely would recommend this. This is a fantastic race course. We are actually kicking around doing another race up there.
Yeah.
But that would be for 2020 or 2021, I think.
Right. So. Right. I even think their race shirt was very cool. The orange.
I'm wearing it as we speak.
The yellow. It reminds me very much of the artist's work in the Key West.
I notice a lot of that these types of shirts are rare. These are more photorealistic, where like an artist does a shirt and then they make it work when they do the entire shirt as this print of an artist's work. Yeah. Or a photo. The guys in Key West do that exact same thing.
Yep.
Here, it's very similar. It's a great shirt, though. This is that perforated tech shirt.
Yeah. I think
very comfortable.
It's very similar.
The swag was perfect.
Yeah.
So, again, I really have nothing aside from the distance to get there. And that is that's not a small thing to
I think you just have to plan for it.
Exactly.
And I think that knowing what we know now, we might have left a little bit earlier to acclimate ourselves.
Yes, without a doubt.
A little bit better.
I would have given us at least one more day ahead and maybe a day on the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So, next year.
Yeah.
Next time.
But listen, 13.1 makes you so hungry.
It does.
So hungry.
And there is no shortage of awesome food up there, and we didn't have to go and shoot or catch any of it ourselves.
No. We went to a place to celebrate our half marathon and our 1 miler, the fact that we accomplished all of our goals and races at the Glacier Brewhouse.
Now, that's probably going to sound a whole lot like, oh, Amy and Dana went to yet another brew pub. No. This is not a brew pub.
Well, I'll say this. They have such great ratings on Yelp, and they have a spot on Open Table, which is really great because there's always a wait if you read all the reviews.
They're not wrong.
And they're not wrong. So making the reservation on Open Table, I say, is a tip if you're going to experience the Glacier Brewhouse, and everybody should, because this was outstanding, and we're going to talk about the food here in a minute. But
it's not a brew pub.
No.
This is not a brewery, although, I mean, they have a brewery in-house.
Mm-hmm.
This place is a nice sit-down steakhouse.
Yeah.
That also...
Seafood.
And seafood.
Yeah.
And. But they also have a brewery inside.
Yeah. So they do their own original brews that are great, that we'll talk about on a later show. And their menu is awesome of food.
They have a really wide selection. I liken this to classic steakhouses that we grew up with.
Yeah.
You can absolutely get seafood. You can get steak. You can get burgers and salads and
pizza.
All that. And then they have pizzas or flatbreads.
And salad. So, yeah, like you said, there's a wide variety, but we went for
a celebratory dinner.
Yeah, and maybe this is the first time that we've really targeted a celebratory meal like this that's more upscale and can be pricier.
And this place is upscale. You walk in, it's gorgeous. It's got all this wood. They've got a big hearth in the middle that tables are sitting right around.
I love it.
They didn't have a fire going that night because the temperatures weren't low enough to really justify it.
No.
Off in the corner, they have a big bar, and that bar is not only servicing the waiters who are serving tables, but they also have patrons sitting at the bar.
Yes.
And then they have this giant open kitchen design, and our server invited us, hey guys, grab your camera if you want, go walk the line and check food out. I'm in no hurry to take your food order.
Yeah, because we were indecisive a little bit because everything looked so good.
It really did. And you could see the food coming out. So there are a number of restaurant concepts that have that, but they really put the food preparation on display for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Travis was great.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
So shout out to him. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, Travis, you hear this.
In terms of server, ask for Travis. He takes great care of you, and he's very knowledgeable about everything on the menu.
And while we were there, we wanted to get a taste of a little bit of everything, but we wanted to get things that were, again, uniquely Alaska or had an Alaska twist on things that we might want from home.
Yeah.
Similar to what we did in our last episode.
Right.
So...
the appetizer was awesome because usually when we talk about the Keys, when we talk about Florida, we talk about smoked fish dip.
Smoked fish dip is a very common thing here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be very smoky, and it's usually an inexpensive whitefish. You'll often see things like mahi, or depending on the more rural parts of Florida, you'll see mullet.
Yeah.
Because that's a very inexpensive fish.
Mm-hmm.
But up in Alaska, you do as the Alaskans do.
And you order the Alaskan smoked salmon dip.
So they use alder wood as their smoking wood here at this restaurant. And in fact, we saw that at a couple of spots that we were at. So that's something that's uniquely Alaska. And then they're using Alaskan sockeye salmon that they, instead of drowning it in a mayo, they were using a light dressing of Greek yogurt, lemon zest, capers, and dill.
And it was served in a mason jar.
Which, like a half a mason jar.
Like a half a mason jar. It wasn't huge. And I feel like those toppings, like the fish, what took up most of that mason jar.
Mm-hmm.
And then the toppings that you have just described were just on the
A
top.
layer on top.
A layer on top and kind of a little bit trickling down, but nothing to take away from that actual smoked salmon.
No, in fact, I would say that the salmon was mostly intact. The fish, you could really see the texture of the meat.
Yeah.
It wasn't pureed to a paste.
Yeah.
And then you had the way you could kind of dig down into it with either your fork or with the bread, and you could get as much or as little of the yogurt and the other toppings as you wanted.
So good.
Just the right amount of smoke.
Mm-hmm. And then the lemon zest, the capers, and the dill added that tang.
Mm-hmm.
That was the perfect complement, and the crunch of that grilled artisan bread.
That grilled bread was so good. They
Had
drizzled it with olive oil. They
char.
threw it on their hot grill, and you just had the grill marks on the bread. It was perfect. I'd eaten just a basket of that bread.
I know. And then the sweet gherkins that it came with.
Which was a very nice amuse-bouche to just cleanse the palate.
Yeah.
You know?
Like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I would get again and again. And like the huge chunks of fish. And it just, even if you are not generally, I'm going to order a whole salmon
And you're not.
And I'm not. I would get that again and again because it's not overly fishy, but it brings the brininess of the sea and then all of the zest and the capers and the saltiness there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, the bread is crunchy. It was delightful.
And I would say comparing it to a traditional Florida fish dip, it was very different.
Yeah, because the chunks of the fish were bigger and it wasn't more like, you know how when you get tuna fish on a sandwich for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
how it's really kind of
Blended.
combined so that you can't even see the chunks of the fish almost. It's not like that. It's just huge chunks of that salmon.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it really highlighted the Alaskan smoked salmon.
Mm-hmm.
So that is absolutely something worth checking out if you make it over to Glacier Brewhouse.
Yeah, and they had other starters that I was really interested
They
in.
really did. They had a jalapeno skillet cornbread that was served in a cast iron skillet.
And it had like syrup that was
Birch butter syrup.
And I was just so interested in that. And the seafood chowder, the Alaskan
the
seafood chowder with the
amazing.
corn. I was like so interested in getting that, but we needed to move on to the entrees.
And
Oh.
yours. Let me just say,
oh my God.
we are steak and potatoes people.
Yes.
Normally, I mean, if you've heard us talk for a while, you know that we tend to go vegetarian or vegan 6 days a week so that we can eat all this cool stuff on the 7th day. We live for day 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you went hardcore in the direction of steak.
I was super conflicted because they had the Alaskan king crab legs on the menu.
Siberian king crab. It was coming from the strait, the Bering Strait.
Sea red king crab legs, and I so wanted them. And so Travis, again, was a super so helpful when he said, oh, you could just add on a half a pound of the crab legs. And I was like, perfect, I can have surf and turf, because that alderwood grilled ribeye was calling to me. Grilled 16-ounce, 28-day aged beef with a garlic herb butter.
My mouth's watering just from you mentioning that, because I love dry aged beef.
And
I love that extra umami, that extra
smokiness.
unctuousness that you get from a dry aged chunk of beef. And it was so good.
It was delicious. And they would cook it any way you want. I had it medium rare.
The only correct answer to how would you like your steak prepared?
But when it came, it had such a char from that alderwood grill.
It's a wood-fired grill.
Yeah.
And your steak, I mean, it was a strong char flavor.
So
But I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. It was maybe more of a char than I expected to have.
Was it too much for you?
And no, I don't think so. It's just
Might be for some.
It might be for some. It might be overly charred if you're just expecting a little bit of a grill marks, and then
Now, to be clear, they're not burning the steak.
No.
It's the flavor coming from that wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was, when I cut into it, it was the perfect medium rare.
It really was.
Perfect combination.
Picture perfect.
Yeah, of that char on the outside and then the tender meat on the inside. Perfect combination of meat to fat ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And the herb butter. Oh my gosh, I can't, I may drool right now because it was so delicious. And then they had Matanuska Valley potatoes and grilled asparagus with a little bit of Sitka smoked sea salt. Oh,
I didn't have your vegetables. How were those? Because it actually looked really good.
Delightful. I mean, if you like asparagus,
Which I do.
it was amazing. Like the woody ends had been trimmed off, and it was so tender and buttery, and the potatoes just were also that kind of creamy, but had a texture on the outside that just that firm texture. It was so good. But let me just say that your entree was amazing, and that's coming from somebody who doesn't like whole white fish as an entree a lot.
No, you. The only time I ever see you order whitefish is fish and chips.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
True.
the only time.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to go full Alaska. You know, if you couldn't give me a whole, chunk of reindeer or yak or something like that, which I found out they raise yaks up there for meat, I was going to go with the freshest thing that they had. And that night they had fresh Alaskan halibut.
It looked so good.
And you got I want to say it was either a 6 or an 8 ounce fillet.
It looked large.
Of Alaskan halibut that they coated with one of my favorite things, which is basil pesto.
Yum.
And they use spent grain breadcrumbs to give it that crunch. And they pan seared that. And they served it on top of garlic mashed potatoes with a roasted tomato vinaigrette, tossed seasonal green salad on the plate.
Oh.
So I got this giant hunk of perfectly cooked halibut. I mean, it was the flakiest, juiciest. And I've had dry halibut and dry cod before.
Mm-hmm.
This was perfectly cooked, not dry. The basil pesto and grain breadcrumb crust that they did on that kept a nice seared crispiness on the outside. So you had this just perfect crust. And then you get a little bit of a bite of the fish with the potato. Perfect bite. Then you had that little, tossed salad on your plate, so you could get a little bit of acid to kind of cut through that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. And I couldn't tell you. I mean, this was probably the freshest halibut. I mean, they were saying this was swimming that day.
And it's a leaner cut of fish. It's not like a fatty fish.
No, I mean, salmon is a naturally fatty fish.
Right.
But this just had a very lean, very, very clean flavor. I mean, it was a perfect whitefish. If you like halibut or cod, if you are a fan of fish and chips, then you're going to love this. And the only difference is your breading, instead of a beer batter, is an herb crust. And I love basil pesto anyway. You could spread that on a car bumper, and I would give it a shot. And this was probably one of the best dishes I've had in the last 6 months to a year.
It was, you let me try that, and that fish had the perfect crunch on the crust, had that basil flavor, such fresh basil
but
flavor.
not overpowering.
But not overpowering of the fish. And the fish didn't have a fishy flavor.
Not at all.
It was just the sea.
Again, if your fish tastes like fishy, it tastes fishy, it's probably not good.
It was so good.
This really was.
And that's a lot coming from me.
But then both of us,
Yes.
we split the difference. You decided that you were going to go with the surf and turf, and you got that extra order of the half pound of Bering Sea red king crab legs. And
Yes.
I said, you know what? We are here. We're celebrating.
Yeah.
We don't often do these big sit-down meals for the podcast.
That are
And I
super
said,
pricey.
This was a little pricey,
Yeah.
but, again, well worth it because we were
Yeah.
celebrating a big trip and a big win for me. My first half marathon post surgery.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Tack on a half pound of Red Sea King crab or Bering Sea Red King crab legs to my order as well. So you went surf and turf. I went surf and surf.
Oh, it was so good. Now, you do have to work when you are with crab legs, but if you know that you can use your fork when you break open those crab legs, or when you tear them apart, that you can use, they come with the cracker, but if you can crack it and then you can use your fork to kind of get the rest of the shell, or if they have scissors.
Which we could have asked for.
Yeah.
But we're both pretty
the
seasoned experts at extracting crab meat from crabs.
And the steam, and it came out so fresh that the shell was easy to get into. In fact, I had that part first.
So did I.
Before I got to my main entree, because I thought, well, while it's hot, it's easy to crack and get into that butter with that lemon on the side.
Yeah, pro tip, if you order crab legs, they do not get better the longer they sit.
No, well, they get harder to get into, and they get tougher as they get cold. So these were so fresh and so tender, and that crab flavor, oh my goodness.
Okay,
And
now most people in the continental United States, on average, if you're getting crab legs, you're getting snow crab. And
Yes.
snow crab can be pretty large, and you get a pretty good amount of meat for the work that you're doing.
You do.
But when you order king crab, and a lot of people look at the price on a menu and go, holy bleep, because it's expensive.
It is.
For us, if you were going to order just the pound and a half of crab legs there, it was almost $70.
Yeah.
And I believe that by us ordering each getting a half a pound, it was less than that.
Because it didn't come with sides.
It didn't come with sides, and we didn't get a full pound and a half. But the average going price for a pound and a half of king crab legs, not snow crab legs, king crab legs, up there in Alaska or in Anchorage, from the places that we saw walking around town, was $69.95.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it was here.
It's true.
But I will tell you, when you are talking about, you crack that leg and you are pulling out a intact fillet of crab meat that's the size of a 3-pound hot dog, it is worth every penny. And these crabs were swimming that morning.
Tender, so tender.
Didn't really even need butter.
It was so sweet.
Sweet, juicy. We were, leading up to going here, we were reading some people's reviews of the crab legs, and some people were just spot on saying, yes, these are great, and others were like, not so much. I guarantee if they got the same service that we did, they probably
let them sit
for a little while.
Because if you let them sit,
so
it's not a room temperature dish.
We each got 2 legs?
Yeah, but they were no joke.
2 legs, and each one had a claw. So you had leg meat and claw meat.
Huge.
Phenomenal. And really easy to get into. The meat was tender, sweet, juicy, perfect. And for you, you had the best of both worlds, surf and turf.
I did.
And I couldn't complain about anything either.
Yeah, you had surf and surf. So
I did. Surf and surf.
Different. But we couldn't get away without dessert on a celebratory meal like this.
Not normally something I go for. But I was all on board because we had somebody who was coming out of the restaurant. We struck up conversation on the street, and and we were like, "Hey, what do you recommend?" They're like, "You have got to get the peanut butter pie." I'm like, "Okay." I mean, they were like aggressively enthusiastic about it.
Yes, and reviews online said it was unlike any other.
And they weren't wrong.
And I grew up, my dad has a special recipe for peanut butter pie and like the pudding that goes on top and like powdered sugar and that kind of thing, and then a meringue. This was peanut butter pie that was coated in a chocolate.
Oh, it was so good.
Like a hard, it's not like magic shell hard, but it was
a ganache.
Like a firm outer
ganache
coating of chocolate. And then you broke into the soft peanut center, the peanut butter center. Oh my God. If you love peanut butter and you love chocolate, dark chocolate, and the chocolate cookie crust.
I would say this, if you're a fan of like a Reese's Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't think Reese's Cup. Think elevated Reese's Cup.
Yeah.
And it was just everything you could want. The sweet, the creamy, the crunchy.
So good.
Perfect peanut butter pie.
And it was good to split it.
It was rich. I honestly don't know if I could have eaten a whole one if I had tried. I'm glad that we chose to split.
Yeah, that was very smart because it is very rich in terms of that chocolate outer coating.
But visually, the whole thing is
so
gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And check out the episode artwork. We've got it there.
Yep.
It's gorgeous. So I mean, you start eating with your eyes. This thing's spot on for what you would want, and it is just, everything you could want in a chocolate peanut butter pie.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, what do they say on their menu? It's chocolate cookie crust, creamy peanut butter filling, guitard chocolate ganache, and chocolate sauce.
And it was dusted with like some crumbles of peanut butter.
Well, I
nuts.
I almost thought that when it came out, I almost thought, did they dust this with like pureed Butterfinger?
I don't know, but it looked like it.
It kind of looked like it. It kind of tasted like it, but
so good.
It was amazing.
So good. So the whole meal, I just highly recommend. And I can't wait to talk about their beers.
They do have more fast casual type stuff that you can get. If you want to get burgers and pizzas and salads or flatbreads, you absolutely can. Yeah. We chose to go with a sit-down meal. But this place is not going to disappoint. Just remember, call ahead, get a reservation, get on Open Table. Because they are constantly on a wait. This is one of those places that's very close to the hotels that service the cruise lines.
Yep.
And we had a ton of people who were there from the cruise lines.
Yes. So get on Open Table because that's how we got in. I don't know if you can call ahead, but it is so good to have an Open Table account and then just to make a reservation because then they expect you. We were seated super quick.
Right on time.
And Travis was great. The meal was great. Can't wait to talk about their great beer selection on a later episode this week. Yeah.
Well, before we go on, I'm going to take a minute to tell you all about our friends at Pure Creative Apparel. Anybody can silkscreen a shirt. Look, we know it's true. I did it as a project in high school. But the team at Pure Creative Apparel is really much more than that. They will take you through the entire process to create your custom items, right from the very beginning with the design of your artwork or company logo, then create mock-ups to show you what the finished product will look like and help you select just the right high-quality name brand clothing or other merchandise on which you're going to place your artwork or your logo. And then they'll get you your items fast. Or if you're not looking to get into the whole online sales thing and you don't want to worry about inventory, packaging, shipping, and all of that, Pure Creative Apparel has a complete e-commerce package available. So whether you're a school, church, or club needing just a few shirts for a special event, or a company looking for a complete branding package, Pure Creative Apparel can help. Find out how by going to purecreativeapparel.com. And we really thank them for their support of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. So let's talk about beer.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about their beer.
Thirsty. I'm thirsty.
We are going back to another place that we talked about on the last episode.
Yes, when we talked about Moosestooth Pub and Pizzeria, we talked about their awesome pizza.
And it was awesome. I'm not going to lie. I've actually been craving that. And I've even thought about...
Reindeer sausage?
I've actually thought about going on Amazon and ordering reindeer sausage. I'm not going to lie.
Don't get the canned stuff. That's all I'm saying. But in episode 76 last week, we talked about their amazing pizza. I love that sun-dried tomato and chorizo combination of that Brewhouse favorite.
And I love the steak and reindeer sausage combo.
Oh, yes, the call of the wild. So if you didn't hear that, definitely go back and have a listen. But they also have an original eclectic beer menu from Broken Tooth Brewing Company. And it's great.
Yeah, I think it's so awesome that this restaurant group is doing a number of things. You got Beartooth, Broken Tooth, and Moosestooth.
And Beartooth is the theater pub.
Their
so
theater
you can
pub, which I would have loved to have checked out.
Yeah,
we just didn't have time.
We just got to spend longer in Alaska.
And
That's
then
what we got to do.
Moosestooth is their brewery, and then No, Moosestooth is the pub and pizzeria, and then
Broken Tooth.
Broken Tooth
is the brewing company that supplies.
There are a lot of
the
teeth
beer.
involved here.
You know, Moosestooth Pizzeria, Broken Tooth Brewing Company. Then the bear is the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we were there, we actually decided, hey, let's record a hot take on the beers that we have.
You just kind of started that and didn't give me any warning.
I didn't.
That's
I just fired up the recording device and said,
Let's
go. So we want to let you listen to our hot take on a couple of beers that we had there, and then we're going to talk about two more that we had while we were there as well. So give this a listen and check out these two beers from Broken Tooth Brewing Company. Hey guys, this is Dana from the Run Eat Drink podcast at runeatdrink.net. Welcome to our impromptu hot take on a couple of beers.
Hey, it's Amy, and really, your cameraman just thrust me in front of the microphone to review a beer on demand, so I was asking him how to pronounce this because I just... Chugach?
Chugach or Chugach. We can ask when the waiter comes back. We're here at the Moosestooth Pub and Pizzeria in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yes, we are.
And apparently, number one, from the looks of it, this is probably one of the most popular, crazy popular spots here in town. The Yelp reviews even look crazy popular.
Yeah.
And come to find out, this is part of this restaurant group's series. They've got this place.
Yes.
Another place called Broken Tooth.
That's the brewery.
They have a brewery. Beartooth.
The theater pub.
Which is a combination movie theater and pub.
Or musical acts.
Or musical acts or
what have you. So
yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty interesting 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we actually haven't even been here 24 hours yet, but we're closing in on it. We spent 14 plus hours yesterday in the air getting here. We ran the 1 miler this morning.
Woo!
So anyway, we came here. We're grabbing some pizza and some beers. Amy grabbed us a couple of beers while we were waiting, and we decided, you know what, let's do a hot take on these beers. So you got the Chugach Session Cream Ale.
Yes.
What's their description say? Read that for us.
Brewed cool like a lager or with an ale yeast. Think of it as an American Kolsch, balanced and easy drinking. This is the lightest beer on our menu. 13 IBU, the bitterness units, and then 4.8 ABV.
Okay. So, your hot take. What do you think of it?
I understand what they mean by think of it as an American Kolsch because it has that same kind of body as the poolside Kolsch at J-Dubs in Sarasota. So but when they said cream ale, I thought, oh, it's going to be sweet. But it's just like a creamier body.
Now, it looks slightly cloudy, but golden color.
Yes. Medium carbonation.
How's the body on?
It's maybe a little bit more robust than the poolside Kolsch. So.
Okay.
I expected it to be sweeter when it said cream ale, but it's not.
Okay.
But it's not too bitter.
And would you get it again?
I might, but I want to try some other original beers from here.
Yeah, now this place, they do brew a ton of their own beer here.
Not on premises, but...
Not on premises,
right.
But they brew a ton of their own beer, and they are cranking it out in there in terms of the food as well.
Yeah. What did you get?
Well, I got what you gave me. That's what I got.
I did.
She ordered for me, and she got me the Van Damme, as in the Jean-Claude Van Damme. Although they don't say Jean-Claude, probably for copyright infringement or something.
Maybe,
but,
I don't know.
Their description says, "We are happy to offer you this beautiful, light amber-colored and incredibly tasty Belgian strong ale. Layers of flavors are awaiting you in both aroma and taste. The Belgian yeast is certainly the star of the show as it gives off wonderful fruity and bubblegum notes. Van Damme will give you a roundhouse of deliciousness." So this comes in I want to say this is a 6.5 ounce.
I don't know, it looks smaller.
It's smaller than a standard pint.
Yes. And it looks darker. It's still a golden color, but it looks darker than mine.
It's darker golden on the cusp of being an amber. Medium to heavy body. This one clocks in at 9.1% ABV and 25 IBU, so not super bitter. And I will tell you, now when they say bubblegum, that a lot of people interpret that flavor as banana.
Yeah.
So when you often hear people talking about Belgians, us included, you'll hear things like notes of banana and clove, and they are spot on.
Yeah.
This is a hefty, substantial Belgian ale that gives you those banana and clove notes that you want from a Belgian. I am super happy with what you picked for me.
Good.
Yes.
Good. And like I say, the cream ale, I expect it to be sweeter, but I understand it's more related to the poolside Kolsch than a sweeter cream dessert kind of beer.
Yeah. So.
Or like a cream soda flavor.
Well, we've got some food coming, and we are going to be bringing you guys some fantastic content all week. I mean,
yeah.
Races tomorrow.
Well, the race tomorrow. The one that we'll be participating in is the half marathon, but there is a 5K, there is a half marathon, there is a full marathon, and there is a 49K.
49K. So if you come out and do the 49K, you can PR in a 49K because nobody else does a 49K.
All right. Well, that was our hot take on the beers that we had while we were waiting to get seated.
That is true, but when we had the pizza, we had to have something to wash it down as well.
We did. And I ended up going with something that was near and dear to my heart only because I am a child of the 70s and 80s.
Oh,
and
yes.
Star Wars is just, that's my jam. And they had a beer on tap called Darth Delirium 2019.
Sorry.
This is a Belgian-style stout brewed with chocolate. It is 9.9% ABV, 56 IBU, so
Bitterness.
middle of the road on bitterness,
Yeah.
up there on the alcohol content. And as
Yeah.
they describe it, it's a big Belgian-style stout brewed with chocolate. They brew Darth once a year and let it mature for 12 months before they release it. In 2001, the first year that it was brewed, Darth won the Great American Beer Fest gold medal and a World Beer Cup bronze medal. Since then, it took another Great American Beer Fest gold in 2008 and a bronze in 2014. They say that Darth is not just a beer, it's an experience. And I will tell you that they're not wrong. This is a cup of delicious dark chocolate adult goodness. It is the closest thing you could get to maybe having a Hershey's Special Dark in a beer.
It's an alcoholic chocolate bar for you.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not too bitter. It's not too sweet. It's just the right balance. That IBU being in that 56, that in the mid 50s right there is so perfect because that gives you just that little when you're drinking it, but it's not making you go, wow. You know, that
It's
is
just
super
too
bitter.
bitter. I can't handle it.
It's not like a really bad imperial stout where you're going, man, they're just hitting you in the face with hops. It's fantastic.
Good.
It really is. And I could totally see this one when their weather starts getting colder.
Oh, yeah.
Being one I would go to when I have a slice of pizza there.
For sure. Or, this place, it is very popular. And
Exceedingly so.
sometimes you have to wait.
Like
and I
we
can
did.
see you in the beer garden where the fire pit is.
Exactly.
Having this
Absolutely.
in the colder weather.
That'd be so nice.
Yeah. And the one I had.
You went the complete opposite direction.
Well, I can also see where this would be nice around that fire pit while you're waiting for a table, or as a nice compliment to one of their dessert offerings. I had the hard apple, and it is an ale, and it is, the IBU is 0. 0, people. 0. And the ABV was 4.8% alcohol by volume. And it was yellow in color, but it had a tinge of red, and it was cloudy. It had a mellow apple aroma and a little bit of spice. And I couldn't really pinpoint different apples in it. And I know I've talked about ciders in the past and fruit beers in the past where I can say, oh, yeah, that tastes like a Granny Smith. Or that tastes like a Macintosh or a Washington apple. This one had a mixture of apples. So it was sweet and tart and not bitter in any way.
I really liked it when you let me take a sip. I said, that's just excellent.
Yeah, it highlights the flavor of apple.
Yes. Yeah, without trying to get fancy.
Or be overly sweet like a dessert.
Exactly.
Or overly tart, like sometimes a Granny Smith can be.
Very pleasant, very easy to drink. And at 4.8, I mean, it's not, you're starting to creep up towards 5. But
a couple of those.
You got a couple of those
when
pretty
you have
easily.
Pizza or like the wings that we saw there. Oh, my God.
Their wings did look really good.
They looked good.
We were coveting other people's food.
I just think, the beers we had there were excellent along with the pizza.
Well, this is a place that is strong in their food game and they're strong in their beer game.
Yep.
So you are not going to go wrong
by
stopping by here for a pint.
Moosestooth is worth the wait.
Absolutely.
Worth the wait.
So we've talked about the half marathon. We have talked about our absolutely amazing experience at the Glacier Brewhouse. And
celebration.
And then we capped it off with delicious beer over there at Moosestooth.
Yes.
So our experience at the Anchorage RunFest was so good that we Floridians are considering a return trip.
Yes.
So let that be, your barometer for, how good you think we thought this trip was.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely one that we are going to recommend to all of our friends out there in the Runcation Nation.
And, we had so much great food and beverage in the Anchorage area that we are still not done.
We're still not. No. We still have more that we haven't even alluded to yet.
Because coming up, we have the Glacier Brewhouse that we didn't even talk about the flight of original beers that you had or I had. Plus,
will their beer game be as strong as their food game? Find out on the next episode, the next quick bite of the Run Eat Drink podcast.
Yes. And, we had a late flight on Monday night. So how did we kill time?
We found another place to go.
We found another place to go. So Midnight Sun, stay tuned for that. In the meantime, really, how do you come down on that question when you run a longer race like a half marathon, a marathon, hey, a 49 or 50K? Do you bring your own hydration? A running belt, hydration backpack, or just a bottle like Jeff and Barb Galloway with the flat soda?
Or do you throw caution to the wind and just say, I'm going to go with whatever the race organizers provide us?
Let us know. Leave us a 1-minute message, a video, an audio recording.
Or video.
Or, you could do video, yeah. And email it to us or call us with it at info@runeatdrink.net. That's info@runeatdrink.net. You could attach your audio file. Let us know where you're from, who you are, and what your opinion is in 1 minute or less. Or you could send it to us at our phone number. You could call and leave us a voicemail or send us a text message with a little voice memo attached at 941-677-2733.
Was that 941-677-2733?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So let us know so we can make you Run, Eat, Drink podcast famous.
It's not very famous, but we would love to include you guys on the show. We love hearing from you and welcoming and part of the family to join in on the show.
Yes, and recommendations are always welcome.
And next week, we have more quick bites featuring food and drink from Anchorage that we absolutely could not fit into this episode that's gone over an hour this week. We're so sorry. Hopefully you're on a long run this week, but it was well worth it, we think. We want to share everything so that you guys know where to accomplish, explore, and indulge in the case that you might want to travel up to the great White North in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yes, we had a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for listening on your commute, on your long run, when you're cleaning the house, wherever. We're just happy that you are part of our Runcation Nation, listening into our podcast.
And guys, we are starting to put together our calendar for 2020 right now. We've already started doing the groundwork for that. If you've got an idea for a race,
yes,
for
please
us to go to, let us know.
Let us know.
941-677-2733 or
info@runeatdrink.net. For now, it's Amy
and Dana
wishing you a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We're having a great third year because of your support. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Run, Eat, Drink Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at Run, Eat, Drink Pod. You can also give us a call at 941-677-2733 or shoot us an email at info@runeatdrink.net. Visit our website at runeatdrink.net and click on the subscribe link so you don't miss a minute. Accomplish, explore, and indulge right along with us. We'll talk to you next time.